guys? The Bench Buddies are back, and I can't believe it, but we're already on week 8 of the college football season, almost a little over halfway through. And this week, we're going to be looking into some good games. Pretty much last week, as you can see here, I took 2 wins, but we're even now on the season, and tie those last 2 games look like it really hurt you.
Yeah, back tied now. I think I was up like 7 or 8 at one point, but honestly, it was not a week I thought I'd go 8-5. It seemed like a pretty straightforward week, but I went to upset heavy, I guess. Texas blew another game for me, and now we're back even halfway through the season.
So for our newest slide that we've added, you got the popular teams on the bye. We'll see how Michigan State can prepare for the Michigan game next week. Georgia, I took Kentucky last week, and Georgia pretty much dismantled them. So this team is the clear-cut number 1 for sure. And It's going to be interesting to see how Iowa responds, after that shocking loss to Purdue at home. And pretty much these other teams, just happy that they're ranked, I guess, this far in the season. They don't really have a legitimate chance at a playoff right now. But, it's college football and crazy things can happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. New rivalry, I guess. In this game, we're playing for a trophy, Michigan Northwestern. I'm looking for Michigan to be well prepared coming out of a bye. Lately with Jim Harbaugh coming off byes, they have not looked very sharp as you'd expect. So hopefully they come out and just dominate this game. I think they will. Northwestern's not very strong. So I'm thinking Michigan will win about 35-6.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And, Michigan State next week, I bet you players are already thinking about that game. They may overlook it a little bit, but fortunately for Michigan, it's not an opponent that could scare you before another big game. And I'm with you there, kind of a big win, and it'll be right around that line.
Just keep everyone healthy.
Another interesting game here is Wake Forest, who's 6-0, who, they didn't really, pick to be in the spot this far into the year. And you got an Army team that's pretty solid almost every year now. And this is a game that Wake Forest has to win to pretty much solidify them as a top team. We're both going with Wake Forest here. I think it's just hard to bet against them right now. They're playing some great ball, but it could be an upset just because they have to go on the road here.
Yeah, it's a game to watch out for Wake Forest. I would definitely take the under here. We've seen it as Michigan fans when you play Army, and when Army plays a good team, they just control the clock. They run some 8-9 minute drives. When they score a touchdown, they're taking at least half the quarter to do it because they run, obviously, just about every play. So if Wake Forest makes a couple mistakes, they could definitely lose this game, but it's hard to bet on Army here as much as I want to. I just couldn't pull the trigger. I think Wake Forest will be 7-0.
And a game at 3:30. Our first disagreement this week, I'm taking Oklahoma State just because of what they showed last week. They let you down, obviously, because you picked Texas. But this Oklahoma State team just finds ways to win. And if I'm a betting man right now, I'm taking that Oklahoma spread just because they're not even favored. And plus, they're getting 7 points right now. It's pretty insane to me. I don't think I've ever seen a line that one-sided for a team that's been undefeated. And I think they just have it rolling right now, and it's, for me personally, it's just hard to pick against them, so I'm going with Oklahoma State.
Yeah, for me, this just sets up as that typical Iowa State game. Like, they start out with high expectations, they play bad enough, just long enough where you forget about them, and then all of a sudden they make their comeback, and I think this is where they do that. You got to trust Matt Campbell at some point to turn it around after they had high expectations this year. So I think this is the perfect time to do it. Oklahoma State had that emotional win last week, so I think maybe they come back down from that and finally get their first loss.
Another disagreement between us. I'm going with the Bruins here. I've been kind of high on this team since day one this year. 5-2 record, and this will be a pretty big statement win in the 12, and will probably get them ranked if they can win this game. Definitely the best game on at 3:30, in my opinion. Just because UCLA isn't ranked doesn't mean that they don't play like a ranked team. As what they were, I think, 10th at one point this year before they
Yeah.
started losing some games. So definitely a team that plays better than their record. And I'm taking UCLA, and not even an upset, but UCLA.
Yeah, this was a hard game. I don't know really what to make out of Oregon. I mean, they beat Ohio State in Columbus, obviously. So at that point, I was thinking maybe they're a top 4 team. But the last 2 weeks, they've really struggled, honestly. So I'm looking for them to kind of turn it around. They have Kevon Thibodeau playing on defense, so that's going to help them a ton as he's finally back and healthy. So I think their defense will kind of come to play in this game and limit UCLA, and they should get the win.
Coming off emotional win in Knoxville last week, you got Ole Miss and LSU after Ed Orgeron is pretty much kicked to the curb after this year. So he's going to try to have a good ending to his tenure in LSU. But I think for me, it's just hard to go against Heisman favorite Matt Corral and Ole Miss at home. And Lane Kiffin, he's not a likable man in the college football world right now, but he finds ways to win. And I expect this Ole Miss team, maybe finish with 1 loss, potentially 2 losses. And I think he's going to get Ole Miss back on the map to their winning ways in a few years here.
Yeah, LSU gave up 42 last week to Florida, who had a questionable quarterback situation. So with that Ole Miss offense, you could see them give up 50 plus in this game. It could be really ugly. So I know they're going to play hard with Coach O in his last year, but I don't think they're going to have enough to keep up with Ole Miss here. I don't think that offense can score like they did last week. So I'm going Ole Miss in a shootout.
At 3:30, we got Clemson, who is unranked for, it seems like, first time in 10 years, and Pitt, who is surprisingly ranked at 23rd this year at 5-1. We're both going with the upset here in Clemson. I think it's just finally they have to win a game, to like a big game like this, I would say. And if they lose this game, the ACC is pretty much out of reach for them. And Pitt right now is the favorite to win the ACC. But I think Pitt's chances are going to take a hit here, and Clemson will win this game.
Yeah, I originally had Pittsburgh, but I just can't pick against Clemson in a game like this. Like you said, eventually they have to get that big win. Dabo Swinney, he can coach. I mean, I know it doesn't look like it at times this year, but he's a great coach. So at some point, this team's got to get that big win. And remember, Western Michigan, my school, went into Pitt and they beat them. So I got to go with Clemson here. I think that defense will come to play, and hopefully DJ can maybe throw a few touchdowns.
And an interesting Big Ten game, if you're a fan of the Big Ten here. You got Minnesota and Maryland. Pretty much whoever loses this game is out of the run for the Big Ten. But PJ Fleck has been great this year. Tagovailoa for Maryland, he's been pretty good as well. And I just think it's too hard to bet against PJ Fleck in Minnesota right now. They're kind of on a roll. They've really kind of started to put it together after their first few games. And I'm just going to roll with Minnesota here.
Yeah, Maryland's in the middle of that typical Maryland slide where they start out hot and then they just tank the rest of the season. So, I don't have a lot of faith in Mike Locksley at Maryland. I don't know how long he's really going to last. So I got to go Minnesota here. And Minnesota's still in it in the Big Ten West. I mean, with Iowa losing, that's totally up for grabs now. So I think they win this game and build some momentum.
And then your Broncos, we're both going with Western here after a really strong performance last week. I'm just going to expect them to keep it rolling. They got one of the best offenses in the MAC, and I just don't really see any signs of slowing down right now.
Yep. You're looking at one of the most inconsistent teams in the entire country right here in Western. They lose by 25 at home to Ball State, who I think is 3-4 now. And then they put up 60 on Kent State. It was actually pretty solid. So I don't really know what you're going to get out of them, but they've actually had some success with Toledo lately, even though Toledo is usually a good team. So I think that's going to continue, and they'll get into first in the MAC West.
And at 7, you got Alabama who isn't ranked number one for the first time in it feels like 5 years. And they have a loss in the regular season for the first time in however many years, pretty much since Nick Saban took over. And this Alabama team is just kind of hard to bet against now just because they have that loss and they're playing pissed off, as you can see last week. But, their guys are fired up and they still have a legitimate chance to win the SEC and potentially make the playoff. If it ended right now, obviously they'd be that fourth team and going against Georgia, and a very interesting game and how that would play out again. But right now, Alabama 24.5. Tennessee looked good last week, but quarterback problems is what's going to hold them back in this game. And it's just hard to pick against Alabama.
Yeah, if it's Joe Milton that gets to start for Tennessee, this could get really ugly fast. So either way, it's going to be ugly. Alabama's going to blow them out here. I think they're just playing angry after losing that game. And there's no way they lose before playing Georgia in the SEC championship. So I think they win by at least 30 in this game.
7:00, you got a really great game here. San Diego State, a team that's not really making too much noise, but they're 6-0, and they're finally getting some respect as they got ranked this week. And you got an Air Force team coming in at 6-1. I'm going with San Diego State because I think they're going to keep that perfect season alive. But you're going with the Air Force here.
I am. So here's a name for you. Brady Hoke, the head coach of San Diego State. He's back where he was before Michigan. And I got to tip my cap to him. He's getting back into coaching, back into the mud. He didn't just sit on his money. He's back and he's 6-0. So good for him. But, I think his luck's going to run out. Last week, they won an ugly one. I think it was 6-6 going into overtime. So expect this one to be low scoring, maybe that under to hit. So I just think San Diego State's not going to be able to move the ball enough and they'll lose their first game.
And then you got a great QB prospect for Fresno State, another Heisman favorite. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this Nevada team who's 5-1 right now and, kind of surprised in the Mountain West, I believe. But I just think it's going to be too much. Fresno State has a lot more weapons on the offensive side, and I'm going to go with Fresno State here.
Yeah, I'm taking Fresno State and the points in this one at home. I think their quarterback play is going to be the difference again. And I think this is a team that could definitely compete to win the Mountain West. So I think they get to 6-2 here and take care of Nevada pretty easily.
And then the primetime game this week for the Big Ten is you got Ohio State coming off a bye, going against Indiana. And, this Ohio State team after that loss to Oregon has really hit their stride. They found out who they have at QB, and I really don't see this team slowing down until they get into the thick of it, playing against Penn State, playing against Michigan State. I think those are going to be the games that might slow them down and give them a loss. But until then, this Ohio State team is just going to continue to win.
Yeah, Indiana just is not what they were supposed to be this year. That offense just can't move the ball on anybody. And Ohio State figured it out. I mean, you don't need a stud quarterback with that offense. You just hand it off to your stud running back. You throw it to your stud wide receivers and get them the ball, and that's what they're doing now. So I think they'll put up a lot of points here, and they'll cover that 20-point spread.
And then I believe our last game of the week is you got Notre Dame coming off a bye as well against this USC team who's been, I guess average at best. That's why they're 3-3 this year. Pretty interesting that their coach is gone. And I guess you could say they had higher expectations than most people did coming into this year. But this Notre Dame team after that Cincinnati game, hasn't really looked the same, squeaking out wins here and there. Quarterback play is still an issue. They still don't really know who is their guy. But I just think you can't pick USC here because Notre Dame's coming off that bye week and just too much talent on the defensive side as well for Notre Dame. But I'm going with Notre Dame here.
Yeah, it is a rivalry game, so you never know. But I think this is another game Notre Dame's going to win by a field goal or a touchdown at most because I guess that's just what they do this year. They like to win close games, and I think that continues. Although USC does usually play them pretty close, but I don't think they have enough to pull this off. They don't have a lot of talent this year.
And that'll be it for us today in this week's college football video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We're starting to get up there in subscribers. 34, it's a pretty big number. But till next week, the Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.